what are the Ten Commandments? I love Blue Letter Bible. It's a great resource. BlueLetterBible.org is the website. And one of the features that it has is in the search function, you can put in a verse, but you can also put in a search term. So I put in 10 Commandments, and then what comes up is articles that have been written, and they have Bible dictionaries. One of the resources they had is the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, and it has an article on the 10 Commandments, which is very in-depth, and I will include a link to that article in the description notes below. But I got this little blurb from that. The name 10 Commandments, also known as the Decalogue. Decalogue is the fancy Bible scholar term for the 10 Commandments, Deca being 10, was in the original Hebrew referred to as 10 words. If you look at Exodus 34:28 and Deuteronomy 4:13, in both of those instances, the original Hebrew says 10 words. So the 10 Commandments are 10 words given by God. Then it also has as simply as the words spoken by Yahweh, the 10 Commandments being the words spoken by Yahweh. And that's in Exodus 20, verse 1, 34, verse 27, Deuteronomy 5:22, and Deuteronomy 10:2. If you look at the original Hebrew, it is the words spoken by Yahweh. So where do we get the title commandments? They are obviously commandments, but they don't refer to themselves as commandments. It's in the New Testament. In Ephesians 6:1-3, the Apostle Paul says this, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right." Verse 2, "Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth." Yes, Paul is pointing out that the first commandment listed that actually has a promise with it is the fifth commandment of honoring your father and mother, but he uses the word commandment here. Jesus also in Matthew 19 said this, Matthew 19, verse 16 and 17, "Just then a man came up to Jesus and asked, 'Teacher, what good thing must I do to get eternal life?' Verse 17, 'Why do you ask me what is good?' Jesus replied, 'There is only one who is good. If you want to enter life, keep the commandments.'" So Jesus referred to the 10 Commandments as the commandments. So let's look at the different definition and terms for commandment. So we have the 10 words from Yahweh. I really like that. That's a phenomenal explanation for what it is, because that is what it is. It's 10 words from God. Jesus refers to them as commandments. We have that in Matthew 19:17. There are other locations in which they're referred to as the commandments. Deuteronomy 5 reads, "Hear Israel, the decrees and laws I declare in your hearing today." That's the NIV, so that's decrees and laws. If you have a King James Version, it says statutes and judgments. The New Living Translation says decrees and regulations. The Christian Standard Bible says statutes and ordinances. And the ESV, the English Standard Version, has statutes and rules. So the 10 Commandments are commandments. They're decrees, there's laws, they're statutes, they're judgments, they're regulations, they're ordinances, they're rules. They're 10 words spoken by Yahweh, by God, for us to live by. So where do we find the 10 Commandments? I already went over that. That's Exodus 20 as well as Deuteronomy 5. This is after Israel has been taken out of the bondage and slavery in Egypt. God used the 10 plagues that he brought down on Pharaoh, on the Egyptians, and then he led the people out, and then we have the part in the Red Sea. They wander in the desert for a short period of time, and they eventually arrive at Mount Sinai, and that is the location at which the 10 Commandments are given. Moses goes up onto the mountain, and God gives the 10 Commandments on tablets, and Moses brings them back down. So let's talk about the 10 Commandments themselves. You got 10 Commandments. Commandments 1-4 deal with our relationship with God. Commandments 5-10 deal with our relationship with each other. So what are the 10 Commandments? Commandment number 1, have no other gods. Commandment number 2, have no idols. I'll talk about which each of those are. Commandment number 3, do not misuse God's name. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. Commandment number 4, remember the Sabbath. Keep it holy. Commandment number 5, honor your father and mother. Commandment number 6, don't murder. Commandment number 7, do not commit adultery. Commandment number 8, don't lie. Commandment number 9, don't steal. And commandment number 10, do not covet. Those are the 10 commandments. I'm going to go through every single one of those in depth, not today, but that's it. Those are the 10 commandments. So the question I have for you is that are the 10 commandments to be interpreted differently for the people in Moses' day than they are to be interpreted by us? Those Israelites at the base of the mountain, when Moses comes down with the 10 commandments and first reads them, are they to treat the 10 commandments differently? Do they mean something different to those Israelites thousands of years ago than they do to us studying them today? No, they are identical. They are the same. The same challenges that those people faced thousands of years ago are the same challenges that we face today. Mankind has not changed. Our circumstances have. And we'll talk about that as we go through each of the commandments. Do not murder is do not murder. Jesus did add to that, though. He said, if you have hate in your heart towards your brother, it's the equivalent of murder. And we'll talk about that when we get to that one. The first 2 commandments, I would say, we'll spend a little bit of time talking about context because they are slightly different. Have no other gods. The Egyptians in that day had different gods than what we have today by name, but it's still the same. In fact, there are far more gods today that try to distract us from God. And the same thing with idols. Their definition of idols, of a graven image and worshiping a statue or a painting, that's not necessarily something that we struggle with today, or is it? And we'll talk about that when we talk about the second commandment. But the important thing that I want to say is that the 10 commandments are still just as important, just as significant, and have the exact same meaning today as they did several thousand years ago.